So this is a survey of a lower ground floor flat that's recently been purchased. There are a lot of damp issues. It's recently had tenants in it and what appears to be a lot of past damp proofing treatment.
There's clearly an issue with rainwater penetrating through. It's obviously falling more on your neighbour's side. If I were to guess, I would say that's where the problem is, because it's directly below that. You can see it falling there. So it seems to be mainly your neighbour's side, but obviously what affects your neighbour will also affect you to some degree. You also see that this is a render. It's impermeable, so water that comes down here gets trapped by the impermeable render. Impermeable means it doesn't allow absorption, and so you won't get evaporation through. It's also obviously there's paint that's flaking on the outside, and it could be hiding cracks on the inside, so you may get some additional issues. And I can see that there's what looks like an air brick there. So water can be absorbed in, but also you're going to get heat loss because of that air brick, which is acting as a passive vent. So let's see inside. So it's quite damp here, and yet it's not showing through, which suggests that it's been tanked. Which actually and also you've got the ridge here. Typically that ridge is caused by damp proofing treatment, although not necessarily. But this will go all the way up, and it's hiding water rather than dealing with it, and the water's actually on the outside, you can see it. And then this. So you often get more condensation around chimney breast. And also you have the sweating down there. So there's obviously condensation. This was lying on the floor that way up, so the floor is vapours coming off the floor. Presumably, so I want to just show you here. So do you see how you've got those sort of strands? That's woodworm there. That's wood weevil, which is a type of beetle with larvae. It grows when you get cellar rot, which is it's the same type of, it's a brown rot, which is the same family as dry rot, but it's a wet rot, so it's not dry rot, but and you've got early signs of it. So actually the wood weevil has done more of the damage than the cellar rot, but it only grows where you get cellar rot. Simple thing with any rot is get rid of the source of the water and the timber will dry out. But when it's skirting board and when you're above solid floor, you just bin it. It has no structural significance. But if you get it in one place, you're probably more liable to get it elsewhere. So,
But that's just this one. We're going to scrap all this. All the plaster's going to come off as well. So.
Okay. So this is the damp wall from. Well, I imagine it's been from the looks of it, it's had some sort of tanking in the past, because otherwise you'd see brown streak through there. The original occupiers?
So it was a family who'd been living there for about 15 years, and the landlord basically just left it to them to sort of look after it. Touched it. So a lot of the work that you see in the kitchen is done in the 80s.
So that makes sense.
And also the upstairs neighbour said that these were converted into flats by the council. So
it's ex-local authority basically. And what about the neighbours? What do we know of the neighbours on that side?
Don't know anything about them on that side.
Okay.
And not really that side.
No, not that side either. Upstairs they had a bit of. She said she's mentioned she's got some damp.
Yeah.
But I think it's to do with pointing rather than anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Is there still a local authority freeholder?
No, it's Sheriff.
Sheriff
Freeholder.
freeholder. Okay, so that's good. Floorboards have swelled up. There's a slight sort of dip in the middle, and that's from water vapour, essentially.
Okay.
Nothing to worry about, but that's the cause.
There are many clues as to what's happening here, but one of them is this corroded copper pipe. Water has clearly condensed on the pipe and dripped onto the solid floor. Being impermeable, water has been pulled up the floor through normal absorption. This isn't rising damp, this is just normal absorption. Rising damp is specifically the rise of water from groundwater, that's the water under the water table. This property is not at risk of groundwater. The property has been treated for rising damp, and you can see there are lines about a metre off the ground, and the rising damp proofing treatment will hide the dampness, but it doesn't deal with the root cause. So condensation will continue to cause problems, as seen here, with rot to timber and damage to walls.
Above that, and then you get a band of dampness around the interface between the two, and then it goes down, but that's because it's hiding it behind it.
I see.
Right.
And I think what's happening is, and the reason why you're getting brown here is because you're getting the colour coming from the timber going up.
Right.
So basically, the sooner that plaster comes off, the better, and it can air out.
You don't have to, but you can do. I mean, if you deal.
Well, if we're going to redo it, I think.
If you deal with the source, well, it's up to you. But so with solid floors, what happens is if there's any condensation on the solid floor, it can't be absorbed into the floor, so it gets absorbed into the wall, and it creates in this case timber rot. But again, this is cellar rot and wood weevil as well. So nothing to be concerned about. Just remove and replace.
So
It's not. So it's not coming from outside. Well, I suppose that's touching
No.
outside.
You're. This is internal anyway.
Yeah.
No, it's condensation forming on this.
So does that needs to be lifted, all that tiling?
No, unless you want to.
Oh, I see. But
No, it's just a skirting.
It's just disgusting. It's
Well,
quite superficial. It's
yeah.
not a.
Oh, so like the condensation wouldn't be an issue once the.
Well, when you follow all my recommendations, it's still going to be an issue.
Yeah.
There are many damp issues on the wall next to the radiator in the bedroom. Problem with radiators is when they're not in use, they are cold and increase the risk of condensation on walls, and that's what's happened here.
I'm talking. So with radiators, you've got a number of considerations. So from a heat loss perspective, you should have it as far away from a cold external wall as possible. But then what you have is you can have a heat imbalance between the radiator and the cold wall. So obviously you can get around that with insulation or by making sure there's good airflow.
Yeah.
And so that you don't have, for instance over here, you don't have a cupboard into the cold wall that doesn't have a radiator next to it. Or if you do have a cupboard there, you have insulation between the cupboard and the wall or within the cupboard. Otherwise you're likely to get mould. So, you know, there are a lot of different considerations, but if, not energy and CO2 conservation is your thing, then you want to have it away from a wall, and you also should have insulation behind it, heat reflectors. In terms of actual numbers, I think typically one per room, and I tend to prefer hotter radiators that then really create air currents rather than low temperature ones. But the way everyone's going to go is to the air source heat pump, which is currently low temperature. And really the best way of dealing with that is having underfloor heating. And of course, one of the benefits of underfloor heating is it's warming your feet up, and so you can make somebody feel warmer for less heat by benefiting their feet and their head. Those are the two places, those are the main receptors of heat. So if you can feel warmer by just directing the heat to the feet or the head.
Yeah, extremities.
What that is. These are salts. No, these are calcium sulfate salts that comes from actually the grout, probably more likely. Wow. It's obviously caused by moisture. It's not. They're salts. They're not organic in any sense. They don't cause any damage. They don't cause any health. There are no health concerns, but they're a sign of dampness. You'll see that you're getting them here. It's what causes these to split. It's actually the salts underneath. You know how with salts on salt pans?
Yeah.
You can see them here. Salts on salt pans, when the salts will go to the surface, and they will crystallise, and when they crystallise under the surface, they break it away from the wall, and it causes in sort of geological terms, it causes erosion, but obviously you're getting erosion inside the property. But it's only dampness. It's not, I mean, I say only dampness, but dampness can cause a lot of issues. But it's not. Yeah, it's not a health concern per se.
So it's a combination of.
Look, it's getting condensation underneath.
Yeah.
It's a combination of the
grout and the damp.
The grout and the damp, exactly. It's in cement. The old word for you've got the same thing with these tiles, timber. The old word for calcium sulfate is gypsum, which is the same word that's used for plaster, or some of the plasters. But it's in cement and plaster and most building materials. You've got an extractor fan in the bathroom, which looks good, but I'll test it out. But as soon as you turn the fan off, it stops, which 90% of vapour remains in a bathroom after the shower. So if you're switching the light off when there's 90% there, and especially if you're leaving the door open, it's all going to flow around the property. So I'll test it, but I'll get a new fan if I were you. One with a 30-minute override.
Would it not?
Yeah.
What about, as in, if the fan itself is fine, what about just separating the switches with that? As in, like, having it not associated with the light?
Well, that's fine for an owner-occupier, but if you ever tenant it out, rent it out, people will just use that and not put the fan on.
I see.
But yeah, I mean, as an owner-occupier, you can override it by just keeping it on with the light on for half an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah. But it explains your source of vapour is from the previous owners, clearly not from yourselves, because you haven't been here. It should run at 15 litres a second. It's about 3 litres a second. So that's probably it's probably the main root cause, actually, funnily enough. Plus probably drying clothes internally and the kitchen. Even though the kitchen has got an extractor fan, it's a bathroom extractor fan, so it's 10 centimetres, 100 mil, and it should be 150 mil, and it means so bathroom has 15 litres a second, and it needs to be 60 litres a second, so 4 times to draw the vapour. If you think the vapour's all coming from here, and I personally wouldn't have one like that. I would always have a hood so that you are targeting the source of vapour. The other thing, so if I just show this, you've got an open doorway, so the vapour is going to be coming in this direction as well as going out there, so it's not going to be particularly effective. And with a tenanted property, frankly, people just don't use it because they see it as the landlord's. They see vapour as the landlord's issue, and they see the cost of the warm air going out of the windows, their cost, so they just don't, which is sad, because it's more lack of knowledge than anything else. So this is a suspended timber floor, but it's been laid on. Oh, there's concrete there. Is that the bathroom?
Yeah.
So it's been built up, and this looks like coal. Well, it may not be actually, but there's no airflow underneath this. So it's basically the timber on top of. In some places it's solid, but there's no airflow, and it's become damp, and it's this plastic. What will happen is the plastic causes condensation above it, and so you're getting dampness around there, and that's why you've got getting the rot here, and again you've got the wood weevil, and this is again it's cellar rot, and I think just remove it.
Yeah.
I would be looking to make it into a solid floor here. You might as well. I'll explain that in a sec, but that's what's happened here.
You were asking about the plinth on the outside of the building. It has been damaged in places, but it's not majorly damaged. There's some growth of plants at the base of the wall, suggesting that moisture can get in between the plinth and the base of the wall. Best solution with that is to run a fillet of cement between the plinth and the patio.
Be tempted to replace this wrought iron.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, look, it moves.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but it's they can rust through, and I mean this doesn't look too bad, but it creates a lot of heat loss.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't look too bad, but you can get rust through on the back, and you can't paint them easily.
There's a strange pipe running under the back bedroom. Ideally, you should remove it because it could be causing heat loss, and or there could be an old pipe that's still connected to the mains in some way or another, or waste pipe. Either way, it would be better to remove it. I guess it is probably redundant, and maybe there was a bathroom there at one stage. I would keep an eye on the upstairs overflow pipe, just to make sure it's not flowing anymore.
Not too bad, but you often have damp issues here. But this is plasterboard, so it will be hiding it to some degree. But here, so this is under stair storage. And you get a lot of condensation as well as penetrating damp rainwater coming from underneath. Let's have a look on the outside. I would say it's marginally higher, but a fillet of cement covering those cracks. So I'll address this later, but yeah, there's some simple things to do here. And then you can see that streak of green.
Yeah.
Some species of bamboo are considered worse than Japanese knotweed, so I would get rid of it if I were you. Here we're looking at some thermal images where red and orange is warmer than blue and purple. It's possibly worthwhile you getting yourself a thermal camera just to see where you're getting the heat loss and to effectively insulate the property. You may consider underfloor heating, and in which case you want to have it nicely insulated underneath. If you're going for a modern air source heat pump, you would want to fully insulate the property. So use these images as a starting point, but consider buying your own. Oh, look at the fireplace. Now, this is one of the key things that people forget, is that a fireplace is a single skin of bricks and liable to form condensation in the centre, which will then spread out across to the rest of the property, as can be seen here.